man's taught us there are two ways through life. The way of nature and the way of grace. You have to choose which one you'll follow.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Take 5, the podcast where we take a cinema legend and take 5 of their films to highlight their excellence and range. My name is Austin Luger.
My name is Eric Martindale.
And we are back one day late for the Terrence Malick wrap-up. Because we've just finished his set of 5 films, which included Badlands, Days of Heaven, The Thin Red Line, The New World, and then The Tree of Life, which was our episode 100. This is a more This is a more laid-back episode where we can just kind of look at the films we covered and the films we didn't. I guess I'll start off with saying, Eric, what do you think of this 5?
Yeah, so it was kind of interesting for me. You know, I wasn't too terribly excited when you picked Malick for no other reason than, in a lot of ways, he kind of represents the American version of, like, Tarkovsky or something, where it's like, I know I'm going to have to, like, be on my game for these films, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know, it is, to me, actually, found the films to be surprisingly accessible, and I think that's kind of, it's like people don't drink Guinness because they think Guinness is, like, heavy. But Guinness is only 120 calories. Like, it's kind of like that was the experience with Malick. Like, it's like from the outside, it seems like it would have been a little too thick, or I wasn't in the mood for those type of films right now. Not that I don't enjoy those type of films, I do, but that really wasn't the case at all. I found I found them to be more accessible than I thought they would be, and moreover, I found them to be pretty damn good movies. And as a collection of 5, with the exception of one film, I would give all these, 4 of the 5 films a 4-star rating. And they would be in the upper echelon of all the films that we've covered so far.
You talk about that heaviness. That's definitely why we've avoided doing, like, Ingmar Bergman. But yeah, you're right. These films are... I think it helps that they're so pleasant and beautiful that even when things are stressful for the characters, it's not like hard to watch where you're just like cringing over like the agony of it all. It is meditative. Yeah, it's not Cries and Whispers. No, God.
You just get that out there. No, yeah, and I think that too, Malick has a real talent and facility for. Or faculty rather, of making characters like that are bad people charismatic enough to really enjoy watching on screen, which is not and it's not an easy thing to do. I mean, now it's become more the norm because shows are sort of written in a way where we kind of root for, anti-heroes or reluctant heroes or bad guys in general. I think, like shows, for instance, like Sopranos really kicked that off. Like, can you follow a show about someone who's morally reprehensible?
It's so funny because those shows really, like, fetishize, like, their bad deeds just to kind of, like, push their things. Whereas, like, Badlands, which we reviewed first, you truly forget that he's a killer. Like, there's just something about, like, the way he kind of goes by his day, that the fact that he is basically a traveling serial killer doesn't kind of play in as the first characterization of him.
Yeah, and you never feel... I think the thing is you never feel like, the girl that he's traveling with is in danger, even though she totally is.
Right.
And then another example would be the Nick Nolte character in Thin Red Line. Mm-hmm. The guy is not a great guy, but as far as like he's literally giving orders that are going to get people killed just to advance, what his superiors might think about him, and maybe advance his own military career or finally prove himself. But at the same time, like, you understand the decisions he's making. You get it. Even if you disagree with it and you think he's making the wrong choices, you don't dislike him. And then I talked about it on Tree of Life. Like, you got the Brad Pitt character is too big of a disciplinarian as a dad. I mean, you start to feel like, are we bordering on child abuse? Is that what's happening here? Or even physical abuse to the mother? But really, no. Like, I didn't. By the end of it, I just felt like he honestly truly felt that he was just doing the right thing. That was probably the way he was raised. And so again, you have a real weird, I mean, obviously it's Badlands, it's quite literal because the guy is a serial killer, which is way worse than the other things I just named. But, the characters are really likable and they're really deep and they're really complex and, they work. They just really, really work.
And it's so interesting because, we've definitely said, and others have as well, that these kind of films work as a bit of poetry, and typically you don't get that kind of like characterization in poems. It's just it's evoking mood, themes, tone. But whereas Malick still kind of uses that handbrush with his camera, it's just so fascinating how much you can just stick with the characters, not just the visuals, even though the visuals are across the board gorgeous. Like every single one of these films we watched, you can put up screens on your wall and just have them up there. I just want to have the Tree of Life on silent in my apartment all day.
Well, that's funny you mentioned that because Malick, unlike pretty much every other person we've covered or will cover on this podcast, is honestly able to and still capture the same verisimilitude through all the films. You could watch these movies on silent, and you could still get what's happening. I mean, you wouldn't get all the nuance, obviously, but I mean, you have these films that are stuffed with voiceover that you don't even need to hear, and in some cases, it is deliberately unhearable.
It's interesting. I wonder if this will ever become more of a habit, but I've been kind of going through the Last Jedi Blu-ray, and a feature I'm looking forward to using is a very strange one in that he made a score-only track for the film. That there'll be no dialogue audio. It is just the John Williams score from beginning to end. And people have said it's a really kind of interesting experiment, and I want to know if more films would try that, because I think it could work. It's fascinating.
Well, you could cut... I'm convinced you could cut all the voiceover from New World, the New World, and it wouldn't change the movie that much. It may change your emotions and your feelings. It may not cut as deep, but everything's there visually.
You might like it more.
Honestly, I might.
Yeah.
I mean, it is possible. Because of all the films, that was the one that I felt really didn't need the voiceover. I mean, you could criticize maybe Thin Red Line that way too, and saying, is this the way people think and talk that are actually in these situations, or are we looking back with hindsight and then writing that? I think that's a fair criticism you can levy at it. But
and see, I'm flipped because I think like the Thin Red Line has like the most essential voiceover.
No, I don't. I'm not saying it's not essential. I should be clear on that. I love the voiceover in the Thin Red Line. Mm-hmm. I'm saying the actual content of the voiceover itself.
Ah, okay.
I'm not even wondering about that. I'm just saying I'm hyper aware of like, okay, like it's easy to write something about something that happened a while ago. And then run a voiceover underneath it about feelings people may have been feeling, but as the writer, you have the advantage of hindsight. And I don't even really think that way about the film. I would have to hear the voiceover again, but I was just suggesting that as a possible negative to that dialogue. But in the New World, like literally, like the movie is it's told almost completely visually that you don't need talking, you don't even need a voiceover. I mean, I felt that way. I mean, not everyone's gonna glean that result from it, but that's just where I felt like at times I felt like it's like I don't need to hear this, just show it to me. And quite literally there were moments I didn't know. I was unable to tell whether the character was actually speaking or it was the voiceover, and that was intentional. Yeah, that wasn't just me. That was a trick Malick was doing.
And it's interesting because we covered his first 5 films, which we've never done before. Usually we kind of go throughout their entire run. But he's a guy who only has 8 feature films right now. Right. And I've seen 2 of the others. One is called To the Wonder and one is called Knight of Cups. Unfortunately, I feel like, I don't know, he's kind of like the visuals are there, the voiceovers are nice, but the characters and the story aren't kind of connecting in this magical way that these first 5 films did. And I haven't even seen his one that's set around Austin, Texas, called Song to Song, because I was so thrown off by how bad the reviews were. But I'll still see it because it's Malick.
Yeah, I feel like Malick films are almost a tough thing to review anyway. I mean, I haven't seen those films. These are the only 5 Malick films I've seen. These were the only 5 Malick films that existed for a really long time. I mean, they were the first 5 Malick films that we covered, but we were covering a span from the early 70s to 2000 and whatever Tree of Life came out, 2011, 12?
11.
So, I mean, that's a long time. But yeah, I wonder, I mean, like, certain things don't compute very well to criticism. I mean, they just don't. Like I in general don't think music is a good. I mean, everybody mostly agrees that the Beatles are good and Beethoven was pretty good, but like, music becomes such a subjective thing. Malick almost enters that realm to me. It's almost, do you like Malick or do you not like Malick, rather than do you like good films or not? You know what I mean? Like, sure. It almost breaks conventional criticism because the films are so layered and different from the norm.
And it was interesting because I've now seen most of these with my girlfriend Sarah, and she started with Days of Heaven, which she actually didn't connect to very much. She thought it was beautiful, but she was not connected to the story or characters. Then she adored Badlands, like completely adored Badlands, and then really liked Tree of Life, but Badlands is still her favorite. And it's just kind of curious, like, what will connect with you, because
I agree.
Like, To the Wonder has more elements of, like, well, I mean, Javier Bardem is literally a priest, and you will have him voice over about conflicts with religion. Knight of Cups is weirdly about a screenwriter in L.A. It's played by Christian Bale, and that one I found the most disconnecting, but I think there are others who will, maybe within the industry, who will find it more connecting. It's fascinating, because I don't even find myself a very religious person, and yet I can't turn away from The Tree of Life, which is by far his most religious film.
Yeah, kind of going what you said there, and you mentioned Sarah, loving Badlands. Well, Alex Dunning, who we had on as a guest on our Comic Book 5, he loves Badlands, but he says he doesn't like Malick, but he likes Badlands. And, you just don't, I mean, you never know. Like, you have The Thin Red Line, which was nominated for Best Picture up against Saving Private Ryan, but if you had to take your pick of World War II films, 90% of critics out there would tell you Saving Private Ryan was better. And The Thin Red Line is one of the greatest war films I've ever seen in my life. And then you have something like, I know people that didn't like Tree of Life that like those other films. So yeah, I mean, it is. It's like, it's hard. It's a really different thing to sort of chew on. Malick is. And I know I feel like I'm repeating myself here, but it is weird. And even sometimes, like, when I feel like it doesn't connect, like, I loved Days of Heaven, but I didn't really feel connection to it either. I almost felt like I was observing a museum piece rather than watching a film, and I don't know a thing about art. You know what I mean? And I'm there and I'm looking at this, but I was almost able to appreciate it in almost a different way. It's hard to explain. And then with Tree of Life, the Academy nominated that film for Best Picture. They didn't even know what it was about.
It is one of the weirdest. I can't remember if we mentioned this on the last episode or not, but because some people went to go see it because of the Best Picture nomination, and there were so many complaints in the theater, people wanting refunds because they want to know what the fuck they just watched. Theaters like AMC or Regal start putting these like hand notes on the front of the theater saying, like, this is an abstract film, it may not have a linear story, you're supposed to just kind of like, they were instructing the audience how to watch it, which never happens.
Except for with Last Jedi.
Last Jedi, that's right, because people kept thinking that the audio went out during key scene.
Yeah.
Which is fascinating.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy that that's missed. But, I mean, I don't know. Not everyone cares about or thinks about movies like we do. But
sure.
You would think if you were going to see a film because it's nominated for Best Picture, you might have an idea, But that said, the films are great. Like I wasn't. And maybe that's just the type of person I am. Not everyone's for Malick, but I thought The New World wasn't as good as the other. I thought it was a clear worst one, but at the same time, I could easily see someone going, that's the best one for whatever reason. Like, it's a more fluid 5 than pretty much anything we've done, I feel like.
Well, let's see how our rankings go. Do you want to go from 5 to 1 or 1 to 5?
Let's go from 5 to 1. And I'll go first since it was your 5. So number 5 for me would be The New World. Number 4 would be, oh geez, this is tough, Badlands. 3 would be Tree of Life. 2 would be Days of Heaven, and 1 would be The Thin Red Line.
We only have 1 matching. I would go 5 Days of Heaven, 4 Badlands, 3 The Thin Red Line, 2 The New World, and 1 The Tree of Life. But they're all great.
Yeah, I mean it's just weird, and again, I almost look at Days of Heaven almost in a different way. Like which one of these films would I want to watch again soon? Days of Heaven would probably be the last, but at the same point, like I loved it. I loved it almost in a different way. And The Thin Red Line surprised the hell out of me. I mean, it absolutely surprised the hell out of me. I wasn't, of all the 5 films of this 5, I was expecting the least from that one because I watched it before when I was younger. It didn't really connect with me. I remember thinking, this isn't Saving Private Ryan. This isn't very good. And watching it this, I'm like, wow, that was absolutely incredible.
I had the exact same reaction. I was thinking, like, okay, there's the clear number 5 going in. Mm-hmm. I don't really think about rankings as watching them. But I was very happy. Because I couldn't do another film because I wanted to end with The Tree of Life. So like, okay, we're just going to do this one.
Yeah, and I mean that was a damn good 5. I mean, I had so much enjoyment watching these films. Some again and some for the first time. And yeah, that was a really, really, really great 5.
So how are you going to follow that up?
So yeah, we talked about wanting to do a documentarian. So everyone's turning off their podcast right now. It's doing a documentarian, and who could we complete with 5 films? I like Steve James. So can we have 5 films? I mean, I love Hoop Dreams. I love The Life Itself. And then we, of course, had Werner Herzog, who's a documentarian, but that's not just his bread and butter. You definitely have to do films like a Gary Gaff, Wrath of God, and Fitzcarraldo on there. Mm-hmm. And so it's like the guy to go with is Errol Morris. And the 5 films that we decided to cover were Gates of Heaven, The Thin Blue Line, The Brief History of Time. What was number 4, Austin?
It is The Fog of War.
The Fog of War, of course. And then the big Austin pick would be Tabloid.
Oh, yeah.
To follow that up with that. Austin's a huge fan of Tabloid.
As we all will be.
Watch the trailer. Watch the trailer for Tabloid. It is pretty exciting. And then kind of timely, too, because we have Brief History of Time. And, that's obviously, that goes without saying. What else? What is there? Gates of Heaven is interesting because, everyone knows who follows this podcast or has at least watched a few episodes knows I'm a huge fan of Roger Ebert. Fun fact here, Gates of Heaven, the Pet Sematary documentary, was the first film to make Roger Ebert's great movies list.
Mm-hmm. So. And the subject of a pet cemetery will, I think, drive people away more than anything else we've covered. Mm-hmm. It is easier to watch than you think it will be. I'm actually excited to rewatch it soon for our episode. And also, and I'll bring up during this episode, Documentary Now is the nichiest show of all time, where Bill Hader and Fred Armisen make pitch-perfect parodies of famous documentaries, like Grey Gardens and Stop Making Sense. They did one on The Thin Blue Line, and it's on Netflix, and it is remarkable. So if you need a good pick-me-up after watching The Thin Blue Line, go to that.
I will say this, too, and I know I'm talking a lot of platitudes. But I really do think that one of the greatest on-screen monologues ever, and hear me out, let me complete this whole thought, is from Gates of Heaven. Now, it is a documentary, so it probably wouldn't technically be entered in a monologue list as it is truth and not acting. But there are 5 solid minutes of an elderly lady talking in a doorway that is, it's just unbelievable. I mean, if it were acting, if it were actually acting and not a documentary, it would be like the stuff of legends. It's one of the better performances I've ever seen. Our delivery of a monologue, it's absolutely incredible, and the film's worth it for that alone because it's just amazing.
So you can listen to that episode. It's going to be coming out a week from Friday, and we have a guest schedule, but I don't want to jinx it. And also, for a fun bit of bonus, next Wednesday, before the Gates of Heaven episode comes out, we're going to look back at the past 100 episodes, and we're going to rank all the films, not just within its own 5, and look at what are the best and worst films we have seen.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that too. Also, we need to get that composite list together. That way we have an definitive Let's Take 5 Top 100.
Absolutely. And also, once that episode is up, all those lists will be available on the website, which is thearttomorrow.com. While you're there, you can check out some other podcasts like The Immortals, where myself and 3 others review the 1001 movies, albums, food, songs, and TV shows that you must see before you die. Yesterday's episode, we discussed the 1963 horror film The Haunting. Pedro had a bonus pick of the French farce The Dinner Game. And I watched an Australian soap opera that has like 6,000 episodes. And I watched like a dozen. Yeah. Yeah. Also, Ad Absurdum is a very fun legal podcast where 2 lawyers talk about the legal implications within pop culture. Where else can we find you, Eric?
Constant Diversion is my YouTube channel. I swear there's a Chrono Trigger video coming, and it will be out at some point.
It is a race, because I am so close to finishing the game for the first time. Who will get to the end first? Your editing or me playing the last, 4 levels?
Well, technically, I've had this for the past year. You've had since 1995, so...
The race is on. Special thanks to Adam Lord for the wonderful music, as always. Please give us a review on iTunes, leave a comment on the website, follow us on Twitter at the Immortals Pod, and thank you all for listening.
Hey, I want to clarify one thing real fast. Austin wasn't born in 1995. That's when Chrono Trigger came out.
Oh, yeah. I am way older than that. I came out in 89.
Anyway, that is all. I felt it was important.
Sure.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll catch you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
My dear wife, you get something twisted out of your insides by all this blood, filth, and noise. I want to stay changeless for you. I want to come back to you the man I was before. How do we get to those other shores? To those blue hills? Love. Where does it come from? Who lit this flame in us? No war can put it out, conquer it. I was a prisoner. You set me free.